All right, here for the weekend pod with Tom. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good. Hay fever's still kicking me in the ass a little bit, but it's not too bad today.
Wow, what a snowflake. Beaten by a little bit of pollen.
This is what I used to say to the kids at school when I was like growing up. I was like, oh my God, you're allergic to grass, blah, blah, blah. And this is what karma is. This is what you get for bullying little kids. Well, I wasn't bullying them, I was just taking the piss a little bit. And now look at me. I'm in the same boat. And this will happen to you one day. I promise you.
No,
Well,
hay fever doesn't impact me. So I'm tougher than microscopic pollen.
I
seriously,
to the...
I feel sorry for you. I mean, hay fever sucks, and you're also a bit ginger, so you've been afflicted with two of these things, which is, yeah.
I am not made for this world. I am not made for this world. Like that, I'm not allowed in the sun because of my ginger complexion, and I will get burned very, very easily. And I can't go near grass. So, like, what am I supposed to do? And I'm also not very good in the cold, to be honest. I hate the cold.
What do you expect? Yeah.
I just live in a house and just stay here.
Stay in, yeah. HEPA filter on your aircon, and that's it.
Yeah, love it.
Wow. All right. Enough of that nonsense. I really ought to stop my anti-ginger racism. I've been told off for that. It's yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's perfectly acceptable in England and no other part of the world.
So, I don't know if you've seen. For some reason, there's a lot of gingers in Hungary, and I don't know if you've seen Martin Adam, who has been kind of going a viral sensation recently,
right?
With his big ginger beard,
right? Yes.
Yeah. I'm in good company if I'm with him.
Very good. Well, talking of Hungary, the Euros are on. Tough start for your boys, I would say. Yeah. I mean, what do you need? It's Scotland in the final game, right?
Yeah.
Hungary will need to win.
Need to win, and then hope that other teams don't get more than 3 points in the other group. So that's likely to happen in one group because Albania and Croatia are both on 1 point, and they play Italy and Spain in the next game, so they're likely to lose. But then, the other group it just kind of need another team to perform badly and not get 3 points, because Hungary's goal difference is -4 going into the game against Scotland. And I also think that the way Hungary are playing, they probably won't beat Scotland. And I wrote a lot of previews for this tournament, and I was talking about how good Hungary were, how they've got the second longest unbeaten run until they lost to Ireland in the pre-match tournament. First time they'd won their qualifying group since 1972, and they've been abysmal. Well, not abysmal, but pretty poor. And I feel I have egg is all over my face.
Deary me. Well, I guess United fans' interest there is partly in looking at Milos Kerkez, the left back, who's had a mixed season for Bournemouth. Like, he was in and out of the team, wasn't he? I mean, he looks like a pretty high quality player, perhaps defensively a little suspect, but a lot of links to United. Obviously, we need another left back. Can't be going into another season with two left backs made of glass, and so a lot of people are looking at him. Apparently, doesn't get on with Areola that well. Am I getting his name wrong? Bournemouth coach? I suddenly blanked on what his name is.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So who knows? That may be an option for United. I mean, I guess they're looking at central defence first. Anyway, we'll get on to some transfer nonsense later. Still with the Euros, England. I mean, there's no middle ground with media coverage of England. It's all like, we're going to stick it up those foreigns, or we are the worst football team ever to have existed, and Gareth Southgate should be fired in the middle of the tournament. Although, to be honest, given England's performances, I might be in that camp at the moment. What do you make of them? Just incredibly inept by the looks of it.
Yeah, the narrative is weird though, isn't it? Because I feel exactly the same way. And watching England last night, it did really wind me up, because I'm not even that into England really, but it's just kind of the wasted talent. And I think there's a lot of good people in that team. And then I also kind of look at Kobbie Mainoo not coming on and Rashford not being in the squad and stuff. And you're like, come on, what are you doing, Southgate? Bringing on Eze, Bowen, Gallagher, and another player. I think the four subs he brought on, none of them have played in the Champions League, and I think it almost like speaks to like the strange decisions I think Southgate's made in terms of like who he's taken. And I know like Grealish and Rashford haven't had great tournaments, haven't had great seasons, but they have tournament experience, they have Champions League experience, they have these big game experience. And you're bringing on Eze with 20 minutes to go, hoping that it's going to do something. Boy's barely played for England. He's not played in that cauldron, that intensity of Champions League football. He hasn't kind of been able to deal with intensity that you get at the top level. And I feel like England missed that a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, it comes
but then the narrative's weird though, again, like because England have 4 points and they're pretty much through the group. So
yeah, I mean they won't qualify.
Easy to forget.
Yeah, I think there's a few things going on here which are a bit odd, right? One is, I mean, you mentioned Eze, who I do think is a fabulous footballer, but yeah, inexperienced. But 12 members of this squad is their first international tournament. So there's a lot of inexperience. He took a formula they'd been building for some time and then ripped it up. But then if you looked at this as a club squad, you'd say it was an incompatible fit between the coach and the way he wants to play and the players. I mean, this is a squad that doesn't have a lot of pacey forwards, Bowen aside, really, that is built for possession-based football into the feet, like dominating games, and yet the tactics are completely opposite to that, just completely opposite. And so we criticized Ten Hag for like mixing up his tactics a lot last season, being very stubborn because he wants to play a certain way, couldn't play that way because of injuries and all balance of the squad, made some bad tactical choices. And I kind of think they're different bad tactical choices with Southgate. He's done the same. He's made the same mistake. So you pick the squad, you think, well, England are going to try and dominate the ball. They can't do it. They don't play that way. They're obviously like, it's Trent Alexander-Arnold for all his famed passing. Really, that is a long diagonal into a forward, isn't it? That's the one trick pony about him. The defensive side has always been a weakness. He's not built for a possession-based football in the centre of the park. He's been found out twice, 2 very poor performances. And I think Declan Rice alongside him has also been bad. He was bad against Iceland and was saved by some media commentary blaming Kobbie Mainoo for Declan Rice's shit performance. But I actually think Declan Rice isn't really built for international football in quite the same way that he is for the Premier League. He's an intense physical player, but international football is slower and more technical. It just doesn't seem to fit. And so you've got these two things where England are crying out for some control in the centre of midfield, and you've got 2 young players in Adam Wharton and Kobbie Mainoo who would immediately give you that, and they've got 0 minutes between them in the first 2 games, and like that's all on Southgate. That's not on the players.
Yeah. Rice was really alarming, I think, last night. Like, he has really hard feet for a centre midfielder. And you see, like, the ball, when he tries to control it bounces off him. And that's great when he's kind of striding forward from midfield. But when you're having to receive the ball back to goal, like, it's just bouncing off him. I know the pitch obviously was terrible last night, and that can definitely excuse some of the poor touches and poor passes and stuff. But obviously, as we always have to say, both teams play on that pitch. And also some of Southgate's decisions, like in terms of the sub, like I say, the personnel he brought on, but it was also like a line change in hockey. Like he literally took off the front 3 and brought on like a complete, like, so that completely has to change the way you play as a team. But then he also took off Trent Alexander-Arnold. Obviously didn't have a great game, and I feel like the experiment has not worked. And I think that Southgate alluded to that himself. But the one thing you said, like Trent is good at, is playing those diagonals or playing the ball forward in behind the defence. You bring on Ollie Watkins for Harry Kane. Harry Kane wants to drop deep. Ollie Watkins likes to run in behind. And you take off one of our best passers who's going to play those passes. And you bring on Gallagher, who shuttles. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, and this kind of it's just an example of what it speaks to in terms of the lack of tactical awareness that Southgate has. He's just throwing people on and going, go and make a difference. He's not really kind of thinking it through of like, how could we win this game?
Last thing England needed when Conor Gallagher came on was a guy who runs around, an honest player who runs around. They need someone who could help them create some control in the game.
Absolutely,
yeah. I mean, it's just shockingly like no one said to him, "Oh, hang on a minute, this is clearly the wrong player." I mean, and I think Southgate will double down. He'll pick Gallagher for Alexander Arnold in the final game, and England will again not have control. Now they're playing a team that's of lower quality next, and so. And they probably only need a point, right? I mean, they're through anyway, but they need a point to come top, I guess. Well, it depends on the other result, but yeah. Anyway, God, they do. You're right when you said they wind you up. I don't ever find myself invested in England, although maybe in tournaments I'd get a little more invested. This is just maddening, maddening. God forbid this guy ever becomes United manager. Just I mean, he's out. We're going to talk about Ten Hag in a bit. He's out of contract. Southgate is at the end of the year. It's like the nuclear apocalypse is about to come. You can see it over the horizon. I can't say I'm that impressed with Ten Hag's performance last season and all the mistakes he made, but God, having Southgate in there would be worse.
I think he's just become a bureaucrat. I can't see him. I can't see him having another role in management role in football. Who's going to hire him? He may get like another international job or something, but like, where would he go? Like, it doesn't feel like there's
MLS is his future. Like it's some crap like that. I mean, he's not getting a top European job.
Oh no,
no chance. So.
No. And I also kind of look to you kind of just speak about the group there, and obviously England are on 4 points. This kind of speaks to the way that these tournaments have gone for Southgate. Like, they've obviously been successful, but has this kind, after the argument's gone, like, he's not beaten that many good sides. And it feels like England eventually could do the same thing, win the group, get an easy last 16 game, potentially get an easy quarter-final, and then all of a sudden England are in the semi-final again. And everyone's like, oh yeah, but they deserved another tournament because they got to the semi-final. But you look at the kind of the way they can play, and everyone's made this point as well. England always have a game like they had last night. But then you look at team like Spain, how Spain have started this tournament, Germany, like it's the electricity, the fluidity. It's just night and day. And there's big excuses about they've had a tough long season, blah blah blah. But it's not like anyone else in the tournament isn't playing Premier League football. Like it's just right. It's just bullshit.
We've had too many games. It's a tough season. The pitches are bad. I don't know. What is it? The leaves are on the track. The trains didn't work, so that was another one. I mean, fuck the excuses. This is on Southgate. He's built this team. It's less than the sum of its parts, and there are weaknesses in this squad for sure. But he chose some of those weaknesses as well. All right, that's enough about England. We mentioned Erik Ten Hag. He did an interview with Dutch TV, and it was a little bit pugnacious. This is a new side of Erik Ten Hag, isn't it? Started with the cup final. And he talked about a few things, but I don't know about you. The standout, two standout things. One, his criticism of Southgate was absolutely spot on. He was like, England take a lead and they try and hold it and they retreat into themselves. Yeah. Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer got all wound up by that, said it was disrespectful. And then they said the same bloody thing on BBC. It's all right if we say it. But yeah.
Well, do you see that? Do you see that positional map after England went 1-0 up? After I think it was like 15 minutes. They were up 1-0 up for 15 minutes, and then the average position of the players was literally by almost all in a straight line at the edge of the box. Like, it couldn't be more right.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. He pegged Southgate there quite clearly, which I found quite amusing. Then the other interesting thing that Ten Hag spoke about was obviously the end of season review process and the manager appointment. And he said, yes, he knew that Tuchel had been spoken to, and he spoke to lots of candidates. And then They decided they had the best manager, which was an interesting way of framing it. It's not exactly how I'd look at it, but I don't know. What did you think of that?
I did think about this before the interview, before that interview came out, and some City fan was kind of trying to wind me up about like, oh yeah, you've got the best man for the job despite looking for loads of other people and them turning you down. And I was like, actually, I feel like it does make sense that you interview loads of people for the job, including the person in it, when you are starting a new project. Whether Ten Hag is the right man for the job, I'm not so sure. But I kind of think if you say to Ten Hag and you kind of say, and you're not doing it behind his back or anything, you say to him, yeah, we're going to interview loads of. Obviously, we're new to the club. We have a new idea of how we want to play. You're not our man. We didn't interview in the first place. We're going to interview loads of different candidates, and we're going to, I guess, interview you as well for the current job you have. I know a lot of people would take that as like people's ego wouldn't let them do that. Like, oh, what do you mean? I'm the right man for the job. Like, this kind of undermines my position. But I think it does make sense. Like, Ineos have got to they've got to know who they have in the current job. Is he the best man for the job? And then maybe they've interviewed 5 people and think, actually, like, there's no one better than him right now. And I think when we spoke about when Ten Hag looked like he was going to stay, like, the reason why we thought that might happen is because there was no outstanding candidate. And it looks like that has kind of come to pass. They've interviewed people, they've spoken to people, like, and that kept being leaked, and you think, oh, this is undermining Ten Hag's authority. But I think it does make sense. Maybe, and I think actually it kind of speaks to a little bit of strength in his character that he can kind of be like, yeah, I'm okay with that. Like, it's almost like a confidence. It's not an assuredness in his own ability.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, if he had a bigger ego, he might have huffed off.
I mean, Mourinho wouldn't have taken that, for example. Yeah.
Or Conte, or probably even Tuchel. Yeah. So yes, it says something about him. So either he's so weak-willed, he's just taking
that is another framing of it.
He's like a battered wife, and I shouldn't make a joke about that, but like, you get the analogy. And or he has a self-confidence in him that's able to accept that they just had to review it. And I'm actually okay with it. I think as a general standard practice, it feels a bit destabilizing for the club as a whole. But given that they've reviewed everything and they've looked at every single position, executives, coaching, medical, transfers, data and analytics, facilities, like everything. And apparently, we'll get on to Ratcliffe's interview, found a lot of nasty surprises, quote unquote.
Especially towards the end.
Yeah. I'm all right with like having a review of the manager, and like, I doubt it's as simple as them going, okay, he's the best man for the job. I think it's also like, what are the moving parts in the current managerial scene, and how do we think about our transformation process, and which parts need to change. Like, so they clearly want to change the structure around the new manager, and maybe they feel they haven't got that in place enough to bring a new, like, Ashworth's not even in, so they're going to bring a new manager in without the director of football. So I think the kind of dynamic kind of lends itself to, okay, you have another season. The worry, of course, is that new contract hasn't been signed. It's not clear what's on offer. Like, if it comes without the transfer veto, is Ten Hag willing to accept that? We're unclear about that, I'd say. And if they don't sort that out and there isn't no contract signed, he's a bit of a lame duck. And we could be in a situation where a few poor results at the beginning of the season lead to, like, immediate loss of confidence, like pressure building. I mean, and the fixtures, it's a few tough ones in the first 6 games, like Brighton away, Palace away, Spurs, I can't remember whether that's home or away.
Home, yeah.
Liverpool's fairly early in the season as well. So there's a few ones there you're looking at going, could be a difficult start to the season. So you can quite easily create a scenario where the pressure is heaped on Ten Hag very, very quickly. And then we're in the nightmare scenario of Gareth Southgate.
Southgate is an interim.
Oh, dearie me, dearie me.
I,
Playing Aaron Wan-Bissaka in central midfield, yeah.
I think there, yeah, I think that there are massive concerns regarding this move. I think one of the ones I think I said on the show before is that when Ratcliffe first took over, he spoke about wanting to create a clear, defined philosophy and a style of play for Man United, and how long that he envisages that to take, or how long he envisages that to be a thing for. I'm not sure, but maybe say 5 or 10 years. But so I guess for the last few months to 6 months or so since he's come into the club and Ineos have been here, they've I guess been devising this strategy. Obviously, without Ratcliffe, it's difficult to do that. But so say they've just devised it or at least got near it. You're kind of saying that Ten Hag is either that type of manager who fits into that mold, the style of football you want to play, or you're saying Ten Hag has to adapt himself. He has to mold himself to this mold.
Yeah.
If it's the first one, I think we're in fucking loads of trouble considering how we played last season. If it's the second one, I guess that undermines Ten Hag's authority a little bit. But
yeah,
are you saying that Ten Hag is flexible enough to bring that new style of play in? From what we've seen so far, I don't think that is likely. But then also the way we kind of changed towards the end of the season, when we started playing a little bit differently. There's obviously rumours, and I think the Guardian reported it, that and another few reputable outlets reported it, that Wilcox kind of gave Ten Hag some advice on how to play. And when I first heard that rumour, I was like, this is surely bullshit, because like, why 3 games in, when Wilcox has literally just joined the club, is he telling Ten Hag how to play? But it felt like a little bit like he had. And maybe if that actually did occur, well, I know the Guardian got the Ten Hag news wrong about him being sacked, so maybe they're not the most trustworthy source in the world. But say that is true, maybe that's another like thing into Ineos' thinking, that yeah, he listened to Wilcox. We got a couple of better results, better performances. It's a very, very small sample size, but maybe that's the reason why he's going to be the best man for the job. But I think there are so many questions regarding Ten Hag, and like you say, that looking at the fixtures like right in front of me now, I mean, we could have like 6 points, but by October, we've got Villa away, Palace away, Brighton away, Liverpool at home, Tottenham at home in the first 6 games. Like, it's not good.
I mean, it doesn't. It really does feel like that. Yeah, I mean, some of the reports said that the coaching staff had also gone to Ten Hag and convinced him to change the style for those last 4 games of the season. So. And I do feel like if you look at these old Ajax teams who are very possession dominant in the Eredivisie and then counter-attacking in the Champions League. So, and we've seen this with United. Like, there's no one defined style. He's a bit of a chameleon. He does change around. Now, he may be a bit slow to do it. 19 defeats last season. Again, sorry, I'm being a broken record here. He doubled down on a failed strategy.
Yeah.
Like, most other people doing that in whatever field would get fired for that. He's been very, very fortunate. He's kept his job. He may say he's the best coach in that interview on NOS. Is that how you say it? NOS? Don't know. Whatever. Maybe I feel like circumstances have actually, what with the takeover and then the review, have actually played in his favour and given him a bit more time than he might have otherwise had.
Yeah.
So, yes. Don't know about that, not knowing what that TV station is called. But Holland, Netherlands, fantastic country. Always enjoyed it. Always had a theory that because they always speak perfect English all the time.
Yeah.
And you walk around and it's basically a Anglo-German word with a few J's in it. I feel like it's a language you could pick up quite quickly. Yeah. So, Amsterdam, though, what a city.
Yeah, that was, I think, the first foreign city where I went, and I was like, oh my God, I'd love to move here. And that isn't just because I used to smoke a lot of weed when I was younger.
Yeah, well, I think the first 4 or 5 times I went to Amsterdam were with lads, and there was a lot of laddish behaviour. And then I went with an old girlfriend. We toured the canals and the museums and the art and stuff like that. Yeah, 2 very different Amsterdams. The red light district, train station, English lads behaving like dicks, as we've seen in Germany, and then the beautiful old Amsterdam. Yeah, thoroughly recommend. All right, that is Ten Hag. Not a lot happening on the transfer front at the moment. I guess we can go through some of the rumours we talked about. Milos Kerkez, who knows? On central defenders appear to be the priority at the moment, don't they? They have apparently made a bid for Jared Branthwaite, lowballed it, trying to play hardball with Everton on this one because Everton they need money by the 30th of July.
Yeah,
almost certainly. And so I think they'll just United will just stick it out and see whether they can force Everton into a sale by then at a reasonable fee. And then there's Yoro at Lille, who's got a release clause, but I don't know. Everyone says Madrid are interested in the young player. They obviously offer a better platform than United do right now, so it doesn't seem likely, that one. And then I guess the even better debate is around Jean-Claude Todibo from OGC Nice, who Ratcliffe talked about as well. He alluded to it. Apparently been blocked by UEFA because Nice and United are in the same competition.
but so when Leipzig and Salzburg were in the Europa League together, does that mean that there were no transfers between the 2 teams that year?
No, there were.
Okay.
Because Benjamin Sesko moved, but the rule wasn't in place. So the rule was in place from July 2023.
Okay.
On this.
Yeah, because loads of players have moved like that, like Szoboszlai, I think Sadio Mane, no, I don't think Mane did, but there's, Kevin Campbell, blah, blah, blah. Loads of players have done it.
Yeah. Lots of players have moved between clubs, and obviously Citigroup do it all of the time.
Yeah.
And UEFA have been kind of piecemeal putting in regulations around multi-club ownership. I feel like they need a proper real framework that says this is what allowed and this isn't, and then go and police it properly. They've basically been like negotiating with each club separately. So let's take a few examples. Aston Villa had to put a firewall around their relationship with, I forget who now, and not share any transfer information. Who's the other club in the multi-club group? I totally forget. And then obviously Union Saint-Gilloise and Brighton. So actually Tony Bloom sold part of his stake in Union Saint-Gilloise to get under the 25% to fix that one. Ratcliffe and Ineos, I mean, they're different vehicles, although so Trawlers Limited has the piece in United. That's Ratcliffe's own money. Ineos Sport own 100% of Nice. Different vehicles, but UEFA said, related. It's different terminology. They don't call it related parties, but they're basically saying if it's related parties have control, that's control, which is fair enough. But that's also in a blind trust, right? So I kind of think that if Ratcliffe wanted to push this and go, hang on, I don't buy this. I'm not having this. We're going to go challenge this in court. That would be enough, right? It's a blind trust. He does not have functional control over that club. So, but UEFA seems to be just like piecemeal negotiating with clubs over this, and seem to have said no transfer between related clubs. Which, by the way, I'm not getting all defensive about this. I don't think multi-club ownership should be a thing. The possibility for like corruption is just too high.
Well, yeah. Look at the way that Forest kind of shit plays off to Olympiacos cost is trying to get around the FFP.
And Watford and Udinese, transferring players between them clearly for FFP purposes. I mean, we'll see if we talked about Bournemouth earlier. He also owns Hibernian, so we'll see whether there's anything. I mean, it's obviously a little lower profile, but yeah. And then Citigroup have 13 clubs, including in Europe, Troyes and Girona. Savio, who played for Girona all last season and was a key player in them getting to the Champions League. Girona and Manchester City, both in the Champions League. Savio moves to Manchester City for what looks like quite a low fee. But that's all right because he moved actually from Troyes, who he's never ever played for. I mean, if that's not the most blatant abuse of rules ever. Oh no, well, he moved from Troyes, so it's all right.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's
well, and also like if you look at the and when I was watching Ratcliffe's interview, I was thinking, if I'm a Nice fan, I will not like this at all. And it kind of goes to the Troy point. Like if you look at Troy, like they have been absolutely like destroyed by
just
City.
a farm club.
They hate the City group for what they've done, and I feel for these types of clubs. Like I say, the way that obviously is going to be beneficial towards United, but the way that Ratcliffe started talking about Nice and that, it was very like patronising. Like, oh yeah, I wrote a couple of things down. He's like, oh yeah, Nice will be very complimentary to United, and there'll be a conduit to Manchester United. Like, if you're a Nice fan, they were second in the league at one point. It looked like they were going to be the title race for League One. And next thing you know, you got this. You think you've got this highly ambitious owner who's going to potentially take you to be competing alongside PSG, or at least getting in the Champions League consistently. And now all of a sudden, you're basically a conduit to Man United. It's not just Man United, and I'm not just having to go at Ratcliffe. Obviously, that's what every feeder club in this multi-ownership thing is. They are all conduits to the big boy, and it's a pretty shit position to be in for a fan.
It is, and with Troy, CD seemed to have kind of abandoned them a little bit and not put the same resources in. They're clearly just there for parking players around the City group. I mean, there's a lot of talk when we think about transfers into City group of them like basically being transferred into the City group, and they decide which vehicle it's going to go into. For development purposes, it's all about feeding Manchester City and allowing them that club to be the best. Girona is interesting because Spanish football is quite disruptible. Yeah. Like, you've got two clubs who hoover up the vast majority of media revenue. Atletico is sort of the third club, but a distant third, and there's a real opportunity for and you got Sevilla and Valencia had massive financial problems recently, so great opportunity to disrupt Spanish football in a way. So maybe they've risen faster than City Group people thought. But yeah, I find it incredibly disrespectful. I mean, do we think that Nice is not a real football club? Of course they're a real football club. They're not United B. Yeah. Like real football club, real fans, that matters. You know, these are community assets, as we've talked about all along. I would be perfectly happy if Ratcliffe wants to sell Nice because he's like, okay, my focus is on United now. We got to move on. But they've denied that's going to happen. Yeah. They seem like they're going to keep it. What they have done, which I think is like fair, is put it in a blind trust. So although he's talked about them in a patronizing way, it's completely separate management structure. Now, blind trust, right? You know, let's not pretend that conversations are not had. Like, conversations are had. This does happen. So will Ratcliffe have influence? Probably. Right. And also, now you can clearly see. Sorry, Tom. So you can clearly see that influence is happening because he talked about Todibo in that interview.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So clearly he knows what the player wants. Everyone knows what the player wants.
And also he said in that interview as well that he really likes the idea of multi-club ownership. So like this isn't going to stop with Nice. It's going to be there's going to be other clubs as well. Like we're going to become a mini City group.
Well, there's Lausanne as well.
Oh yeah, there we go.
He put his brother in charge. His brother fucked him up a couple of times, and also they have a very strong financial, not ownership relationship with RC Abidjan in the Ivory Coast. I suspect that's to do with some oil refineries there. So yeah, United are already in a multi-club ownership group, and there are significant advantages. So what does City Group? City, they share resources. So scouting, marketing, licensing resources, HR, admin, they're all centralized amongst the group. And so the costs are taken away from each individual club, very useful for FFP purposes. And then they obviously share data and they share players. Players move around, right? So there are economies of scale to be had. And Ratcliffe knows this very well because what has he done in Ineos? he's pieced together different businesses that he's bought, often toxic assets, and turned them around. He's an old private equity guy. He knows the model very well. And he's thinking about the same with United. So he's come into United. He's gone, what do we have to do? We have to fix the problems. We have to create a structure that's right for this business to flourish. And we have to get rid of unnecessary costs as he sees them, right? So staff being told they can resign and stuff like that. So he's playing out the same model, and he sees value with putting these different businesses, football businesses together, or even sporting, because Brailsford's been a big part of the kind of turnaround strategy. And putting them together and running them as a conglomerate. So, yeah, and he's right. There is advantage to it.
Yeah, and I know. I kind of like it from a perspective of like different federations. If you're in, like City have their team in Brazil, and they have like Melbourne City, and they have New York City. And I like it from that perspective.
Yokohama.
I like it in that respect, where like I think it just becomes very, very murky when you have them in Europe, and when, especially in two big leagues like La Liga in the Premier League or Liga in the Premier League. I think that's where it becomes very murky. Whereas I think that, say, if you're a New York City fan, I think you're pretty excited and pretty happy about being associated with Manchester City. And I think if United were to create a team in MLS, like the same feeling would be had by those fans. They'd be really proud to be associated with United, and the benefits would help both teams potentially. Well, maybe not, because America doesn't produce that many actually good players. No offense to any Americans listening, but yeah, like I say, it just gets murky when it's in the same when it's in UEFA Federation, and also obviously the Europa League, the Champions League, and all that kind of stuff.
While we're talking about America, NBC do a fantastic job of covering the Premier League. Their coverage is top notch. It's really good. Fox,
I've seen some clips. I have seen some clips.
It is so bad. They are covering the Euros
and
it's
Copa America.
I mean, and Copa America, and it's just so bad, the coverage. They have like ridiculous people on it, including Alexei Lalas, who's just an idiot.
Saw some clips of him. Yeah, oh my god,
he's just a massive penis. Like, just unbelievably so, and he plays up to the kind of character as well. But yes, and like otherwise smart people seem to be like turned into just ridiculous kind of caricatures as well. And it's very US centric, and like they talk about the golden generation of American players, and like, I mean, maybe in US terms, it's not a particularly good team.
Oh, is this is the team right now, the golden generation?
Apparently.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I was trying to, in my head, I was like, when was this? Like 1950 when they beat England in that World Cup game? Or...
So yeah, Fox is just so bad. And then they start the Euros. They like to do this. It's clearly in a studio in a green screen, and they did it for Qatar. They were going to do this as well until the Qataris paid for their studio on the waterfront in Doha. But they've got a green screen for the Euros, and I kept going on about their fantastic studio. I'm like, it's a ropey graphics and it's clearly a green screen. Like, we're not fooled by this. So it starts, and then they have just Lalas. They had Peter Schmeichel. I mean, bless him, Peter Schmeichel, fantastic keeper for United. He's just a horrendous pundit. He just speaks absolute word salad all of the time. I mean, it's incomprehensible. Like, if you read the transcript, you'd look at it and you'd go, what? What was he trying to say? He was in the 99 doc recently. I meant I was too polite to ask when I had the director on a couple of weeks ago. I was like, how many takes did it take to get Schmeichel to say something? Because he actually says some reasonable stuff there. I'm like, was that like from 9 hours of footage? You got your 2 minutes there, or what? Anyway. So I don't know why I went off on that.
I saw
Fox.
Yeah, I saw a clip of Alexei Lalas having a go at the England team or something. I can't remember exactly what he's doing, but Daniel Sturridge was sat next to him, And Daniel Sturridge was
Oh,
just
yeah.
kind of putting his hands over his face. Like, what the fuck are you
Yeah,
talking about, mate?
he's actually not bad, Daniel Sturridge. I wouldn't have
I,
picked him out
yeah,
as a good
he has been
pundit,
really good
but
on
he's all
Sky
right.
the past year, yeah. And he's also
Yeah.
a lot of fun, which is always like I feel like, especially with football coverage in the UK, like it is a bit co-faced. It's not, and I don't want it to be like banter FC, like CBS Sports or whatever. But you kind of do need to have this middle ground, and I feel like Daniel Sturridge is good, has basically good influence on that Sky studio sometimes, especially like Souness and Keane. Sometimes, obviously, I love Keane, but he needs the right person to bounce off, and I feel like someone like Sturridge can bounce off it quite nicely.
Yeah. All right. Back to Ratcliffe. A few other things he said. He is against financial regulations. He said, I mean, he's clearly against it. He's he talked about the pegging. No, what do they call it? Pegging something very different, isn't it?
I was
Yeah.
thinking that.
Don't check Urban Dictionary for that one. Yeah. I
would have made
my mother listens to this podcast. Yeah.
That would have made bigger headlines, I think, if he was talking about pegging.
Yeah. What's the term they're using where they peg the total spend? They're going to test it in the Premier League next season. It's not actually a regulation. They're going to test to see how it looks like, where they 5 times the bottom club's revenue, broadcast revenue, is the maximum squad cost you can have. So he's against that. He's against financial regulations. He's against related party restrictions. So he actually came out in sympathy with Manchester City and their case in which they are challenging the Premier League's related party regulations, which is interesting. Although, I mean, think about what on the one hand what City are doing, on the other hand what Chelsea are doing. Ratcliffe could have a really big influence there. If he wanted to leverage his full financial muscle, Ineos could be, in a couple of years' time after the Qualcomm deal is ended, we could have Ineos across the front of the shirt. We could quite clearly argue that is a, I don't know, what, £100 million a year contract easily, because United are the biggest reach of any football club. We could sell Carrington to Ratcliffe for £200 million. We could sell the Cliff to Ratcliffe for another 100 million. Old Trafford could be sold to Ratcliffe and then knocked down and a new stadium rebuilt for a few hundred. Like you can see just how manipulative this could get, and why Ratcliffe might be in favour of it.
Yeah, and I think it kind of speaks to the ambition of him as well. Like I think there was there was certainly a lot of people on Twitter who were kind of saying, "Oh yeah, Ratcliffe's." He's not rich enough, or he's not going to be ambitious enough. He's kind of doing this for money, or whatever their bullshit arguments were. But like, I think that interview, obviously, I think the good of the game is potentially at stake by sympathising while not getting in bed with City, but kind of, I guess, sympathising with Manchester City. But I think it also speaks to the ambition that he has for this football club, because I think.
Yeah,
he doesn't want to just come in and just be the leader. He really, it seemingly really does want to sort this football club out, and yeah, he said a lot of shit in that interview, and there's a lot of stuff. He's very much like a politician. You've got to read between what he's saying. Like you hear, you read, you listen to what he says, and you take in the words. But it like I say, like a politician, you've got to kind of. Well, why is he saying this? What is he trying to get from this?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that, but like,
yeah,
I feel like that was like, okay, this is you are really serious about this.
He is very clear. I actually think he's very clear as a communicator, and he's obviously very composed and being a billionaire, kind of, I mean, to build a large business, and most executives I've worked with over time, they have one thing they do have is a lot of composure. But he's smart with it. He knows how to build and grow a business. They've identified very quickly where they think the weaknesses are. He said they got a lot of bad surprises. I mean, he was in that interview, by the way, he's very clear, but the one area where he wasn't pointed was when criticizing. I mean, he actually smiled. He smirked, didn't he? I don't know if you've seen the video. He smirks when he's asked the questions. And he was, I mean, they have a non-disparagement clause in that contract with the Glazers, and he's talked a lot about their partnership, hasn't he, in the past, and why he was able to become an investor in United is because he built that partnership with the Glazers. They clearly didn't want to sell all of it, and they built a lot of trust. So he's very careful not to like criticize them directly, but indirectly he was critical of everything.
Yeah, that's what I kind of. Yeah, it was very indirect, but it was also very direct indirectly, because and I wondered like how the Glazers kind of take this with him just basically bad mouthing their work for the last 14 years, 20 years or whatever. Like, and I know everyone knows that they've done shit, but like the guy who's not even like the full majority holder of the club that you own, the guy who's just kind of come in and been this knight in shining armor while you're just still literally owning the club, it's just bad mouthing you to shit. Like, are they okay with this?
Yeah.
And I guess because they're such a shameless group of guys, they're probably like, well, fuck it. If he's doing the right thing, he's doing the right thing. I don't really care.
Just want the money.
Yeah. So, but it is interesting just how he's not biting his tongue at all in that respect, which is great. Like, but we saw Gary Neville bite his tongue for so many years about the Glazers. We saw so many pundits bite their tongue. The people who worked at the club or whatever, Ratcliffe's kind of come in and been like, well, indirectly, but also directly, just saying, yeah, these last guys were really shit. And they said the thing about the waterfall as well, like he's taking the piss.
And like he said 1.1 billion net spent since Ferguson and Gill left. Real Madrid 200 million.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he did say, and they have 6 or 7 players worth over 100 million. We don't have any. I don't think United would accept a £100 million bid for Kobbie Mainoo or Alejandro Garnacho right now. So maybe he wasn't quite right there, but I get the point. Yeah. Like Real Madrid have been very smartly run, like clearly, and they've got this model now where they seek out the best young players in Europe and try and get a decent price for them. Obviously, paying massive wages, but. It's a model that's worked, and he's looking to them as a model for how United develop. So he's right there. He said the facilities haven't kept up with the times, and when they talk about having an elite environment, I think that's part of it, right? So when the next Jude Bellingham is taken around Carrington, not only are you going to try and wow him with Alex Ferguson and former stars and players, but you're going to try and wow them with the facilities rather than a pool that's going mouldy and the tiles are falling off the ceiling or whatever, right? And it will be a club that young players, because they're very clearly that's their transfer strategy now, younger players who can develop, not in the Brighton model where you bring a young player and you flip them for a profit and that's part of your business model, but we get young players and we grow them into world stars, and this is how we're going to develop success. And then later, maybe you can buy the Mbappes or whatever it is down the line. And I think he's right. I think he's right in his analysis, and I think the strategy for where United are right now is right. Like, we've tried buying the aging stars. We've tried buying stars. It hasn't worked.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of what he said in that interview was kind of stuff we've been saying and you've been saying with Paul for, I don't know, a decade.
Decades.
Yeah, exactly. As long as this podcast has been going, Paul. And that.
I mean, we are into our 3rd decade, 2009.
and though it's come 25 years too late, like at least that's reassuring that and the moves so far have been good. I mean, some of the other things that Ratcliffe said in that interview about not being PC enough to go into politics, he's definitely not woke, like happy to go at the immigrants, blah 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 blah. I mean, that speaks to the personal aspect of the man, and isn't someone I'd love to go to a pint with. It wouldn't be someone I'd be voting to be my next prime minister or anything like that. And we've spoken before, like if someone's going to take over your football club in 2024, they're not going to be a good chap. And he isn't. But from a footballing perspective, the moves that they've made so far seem to be pretty logical. And that's all you can ask for, I guess. Early signs, potentially not the Ten Hag thing, but I think on the balance of,
I think they're playing a longer game there. Yeah,
and who's the guy to come in? It's difficult, but yeah, I feel like it's so far so okay, so far quite good.
Yeah. I don't like the guy. I don't agree with his politics. I mean, there's listeners probably do, and that's fine. You know, I think there's all stripes, and that's fine. We're a broad church, Tom.
Are we?
If well, sort of. If people want to come and listen to our, wokeism on here, then they're welcome to.
I am surprised I'm surprised that some people do still listen when they can clearly know that our politics, but you still get them in the YouTube like commenting about like why you're always being so lefty or whatever. Anyway, sorry.
No, I mean, keep listening, guys. I think we've probably I think we've probably driven some people away over the years, and it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, look, politics and sport are deeply intertwined. If you don't think they're deeply intertwined, you don't have your eyes open. Sport, and especially football, is a magnet for cultural and political change. That's why all the politicians right now are pretending to be football fans.
It's all I've been writing about for the last 2 weeks in regards to Hungarian football.
Yeah. Hungarian football deeply intertwined the politics there. Clearly, this is why nation states, and particularly Gulf states, are involved. Autocratic states are involved in sport. It's a good vehicle for soft power, reputation washing, and so on. Right, so they are deeply intertwined. I've said it before, and I say to people on especially my Instagram DMs, I get quite a lot of commentary that I think we keep quite a tight ven on where the intersection of politics and sport meet, right? So Ratcliffe's, a Tory and a Brexiteer. He doesn't like immigration. He owns one of the most polluting companies in the world, which isn't exactly awesome for some of the nations that he's involved with either, right? There's nothing I personally agree with there. Some other people may well do, fine. But I think we can be honest about our analysis of that. I think we're pretty honest on this pod. Well, you weren't on board, but previously about Russia and the 2018 World Cup, about Qatar as well. There'll be a political discussion to be had about the World Cup in the USA, Canada, and Mexico. It's a very different one, I think, but people will be looking to us to frame that in the right way, and I think that's all fair. I get a lot of people asking me to comment on stuff that is way outside the scope of that. And I'm always like, why? Why do you want me, Ed with 1,400 followers on Instagram, to comment on this? It doesn't make any sense. And what difference do you think I'm going to make? But on this one, there are two very different sides to Ratcliffe. There's Ratcliffe, the personality. He lives in a tax haven to avoid tax. Is there any surprise he doesn't like financial regulations? Versus the operational side and what they're trying to do with the football club. And I would much rather we had that view of the world and how to develop United than the Todd Bowley view of the world, which he said at conferences, hey, you guys in Europe are dumb. You don't know how to run sports. We're going to come in and show you how to do it. How's it going, Todd?
Yeah, thank God we missed that one.
Yeah. All right. That's a bit of a rant, wasn't it? Anything else? Have we missed anything else? No, that's it. That's it, kind of it for the week, isn't it? All righty, everyone. Thank you very much for listening to us waffle on about politics. The three people who are left, who are right now commenting in the YouTube channel, why you woke lefties still talking about football and politics? Please do comment. Like the video. You're supposed to do this, right? I always forget to, if you're on the YouTube channel right now, comment and like, because we can get a few more followers. If you're listening to the podcast version, you can leave a review in Spotify or Apple Podcasts and hit 5 stars. You can even say, I'm sick of these woke lefties talking about politics on my football feed. Doesn't really matter. That's not what triggers the algo. And we want the 5 stars in the comment. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll catch you soon.